welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into a classic, a real cornerstone of literature, Albert Camus' The Stranger.
That's right. A profoundly influential book.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're not just going to skim the surface, are we? We want to dig into why it still resonates, why it matters for understanding, well, us, humans, society.
We're aiming to pull out those key insights, maybe some surprising angles, and really get to the heart of its power.
Exactly. Get those nuggets of knowledge.
And fundamentally, The Stranger throws us right into that big human question. How do we find meaning, or do we find meaning, when the universe just seems silent?
Indifferent.
That indifference, it's central.
It forces you to look at life, judgment, emotion, all of it in a really stark way. And that's what we'll be exploring today, why it all matters.
Great. So let's start with the man himself, Albert Camus. Huge figure in the 20th century, literature, philosophy. You hear existentialism, you hear absurdism thrown around.
Definitely. Deeply connected to both, though he had his own specific take, especially on absurdism. Right. And that term, the absurd, it's impossible to understand The Stranger without grappling with it. So maybe you could unpack that for us. What did Camus mean by the absurd?
Okay, so for Camus, the absurd isn't just like things being weird or chaotic. It's more specific. It's the fundamental conflict.
A conflict.
Between what? Between us, humans, with our deep-seated, desperate need for meaning, for reason, for order, and the universe itself, which seems to offer none of that. It's just silent, unreasonable.
So we're constantly searching for something the universe doesn't provide.
Exactly. We're wired to seek purpose, answers, a grand design. But the world, objectively, doesn't seem to have one built in. And that clash, that gap between our longing and the world's silence, that's the absurd.
And Camus thought we shouldn't ignore it, but face it.
Precisely. Confront it bravely. That's the starting point.
Okay, that makes sense. That collision point, as you said. So how does this idea, this absurd, play out in the novel, in Meursault?
Meursault, our protagonist, a French-Algerian man who's just, well, defined by his detachment, isn't he?
Yeah, almost radically honest about not feeling what's expected. It kicks off right away with his mother's death, his reaction or lack of reaction.
It's jarring. He doesn't perform grief in the way society demands, and that immediately sets him apart. It's like a declaration.
And we see this detachment elsewhere, too, like with Marie. She seems to represent a kind of normal human connection, desire.
Right. Love, physical sensation, the possibility of a conventional life.
And then there's his friend Raymond. Bit of a dodgy character.
Definitely. Sort of embodies violence, base desires, and he drags Meursault into this conflict, which escalates.
Right, escalates to the pivotal moment, the murder on the beach.
The absolute turning point. But what's really striking, this is core Camus, is what happens next. The trial.
Yeah, the trial isn't quite what you'd expect.
Not at all. The focus shifts dramatically. It becomes less about the actual killing.
And more about him, his personality, his attitude.
Exactly. They fixate almost obsessively on his lack of outward emotion. Why didn't he cry at his mother's funeral? That becomes Exhibit A.
It's almost treated as evidence for the murder, isn't it? His lack of conformity.
It's seen as damning. His failure to perform the expected social rituals is judged as harshly, maybe more harshly, than the act of violence itself.
That's really where it gets interesting. So Meursault is detached, indifferent maybe, but also strangely honest. He doesn't fake feelings he doesn't have.
A kind of radical honesty, yes.
Marie, as you said, offers this path to normalcy, love, connection.
Which he engages with, physically at least, but seems fundamentally unable to commit to emotionally in the way she or society expects.
And Raymond pulls him into chaos. But the magistrate, the court, they're not just legal figures here.
No, they become symbols. They represent society's rigid insistence on meaning, on explanations, on emotional conformity. They try to impose a narrative, a reason for his actions that fits their worldview.
They need him to make sense according to their rules.
Precisely. And his refusal or inability to do that is what truly condemns him in their eyes.
Which leads us right into the big themes, doesn't it? All flowing from Meursault's experience.
Absolutely. First, there's alienation. His profound disconnection. It's not just being lonely, it's being outside the entire emotional rule book of society.
He doesn't play the game.
He doesn't even seem to know the rules or care about them. Which brings us to societal judgment. The novel is a masterclass in showing how society punishes nonconformity.
Especially emotional nonconformity.
Critically. It's not just the crime, it's his failure to act the part, to show remorse in the approved way. The performance is paramount.
And then underpinning everything is death and mortality.
Yes. The book stares unflinchingly at the inevitability of death, and Meursault's journey is towards, eventually, this almost startling acceptance of it.
He stops fighting it.
He stops running from the thought of it.
Yeah.
He accepts the indifference of the universe and his own finite existence within it, and there's a strange kind of peace in that for him.
Wow. And Camus uses some really powerful symbols to drive these themes home. They're almost characters in themselves.
They really are. You absolutely have to talk about the sun.
Right. It's not just weather, it's oppressive, blinding.
It's this physical force that bears down on him, influences him, especially, crucially, during the murder. It's like the physical manifestation of that indifferent, powerful universe. Or maybe just reality, unfiltered.
And the courtroom.
That becomes the stage, right? A theater for societal judgment. It embodies that demand for performance, for explanations that fit the norm, for conformity. It's stark, artificial.
Frosted with the sea, maybe?
Exactly. The sea often represents moments of freedom for Meursault. Pure physical sensation, connection with Marie, swimming. It's life experienced directly, unburdened by societal expectation or the search for meaning. Fleeting moments of just being.
So how did these symbols connect back to his philosophical journey, his understanding of the absurd?
Well, what's fascinating is that these aren't just decorations. They forge his understanding. The sun strips away illusions, forces him into that raw state. The courtroom exposes the absurdity of the rituals humans create to impose meaning. The sea offers glimpses of life lived purely for itself, for the sensation.
So through these experiences,
Through these concrete, physical, often uncomfortable experiences, he arrives at that acceptance we talked about. Life doesn't have some grand external meaning handed down.
and that's okay.
For Camus, yes. Embracing that, accepting the absurd, is where freedom lies. Meursault finds this strange, defiant liberation in recognizing the world's indifference and his own place within it. He becomes, in a way, truly present. No more illusions.
So, okay, bringing it back to us, to the listener, what's the takeaway? What does this novel, written decades ago, mean for us now?
I think its power lies in the challenge it throws down. It makes you question authenticity. How much are you performing emotions society expects? How much are you living according to your own feelings versus a script?
Right. It forces you to think about living without those comforting illusions. Maybe.
Exactly, and confronting mortality, not morbidly, but just accepting it as part of life. What does it mean to live fully, knowing it ends, knowing there might not be a cosmic scorecard?
Heavy question.
Definitely, and that's why The Stranger endures. It's a cornerstone of existentialist, absurdist thought for a reason.
Yeah.
It's not just a story, it's like a philosophical toolkit.
Still studied everywhere.
Because the questions are timeless, aren't they? The search for meaning, the pressure to fit in, facing our own end. These are just fundamental parts of being human. It keeps asking, are you living authentically? Or are you putting on a show?
Yeah. This deep dive really, it really does push you to think about those uncomfortable truths.
Why?
About yourself, about society.
It's not always comfortable, Camus.
No. But it reminds you that maybe real freedom is found in just being present. Accepting the world, even its indifference, and living honestly within it.
And maybe that leaves you, the listener, with something provocative to chew on. If society judges us not just for what we do, but for how we feel or how we show our feelings about life's big moments, grief, joy, indifference, what does that really mean for being authentic?
How much room does it leave us?
How much freedom do we really have to live without those illusions? Something to think about.